Michael Bartier's having fun with Rosé in BC's South Okanagan Valley, and he's done a lot of thinking about what could define it and make it unique from the run-of-the-mill offerings that dot the modern world's pink wine landscape.
I think a lot about rosé. I drink a lot of rosé. To me, what defines rosé, and there's no particular order to this, but good rosé should be very refreshing. This should be, wine that, wine to drink. Rosé should have just a little bit, just this little kiss of tannin. That makes the wine very refreshing as well, but it also makes it incredibly versatile with food. And of course, color. Color is going to, I guess, be what defines rosé at its most simplest level. But for me, that's the least important because you don't taste the color. I think it's very important for a rosé to be refreshing, because you're going to be drinking it, out on a patio. It's going to be 35 degrees Celsius. And that leads me to the next thing. I think that it's very important for a rosé to be low in alcohol. 15% alcohol. You're not going to be able to finish the bottle. And you're going to be looking for a couch to nap on after that. The low alcohol for me is incredibly important. It makes it much more refreshing. There are 3 ways to make rosé. There's a Saignée version, and this is when a winery is making a very powerful and full-bodied red wine. What they will do is they'll harvest their grapes, for that full-bodied, heavy red wine, probably with a high potential alcohol. And they will bleed off some of the juice from that right away. And the reason that they do that is so that they can increase the ratio of skins to juices during the fermentation. Makes it much more intense. The second method of making a rosé will be to take red grapes and let them sit on the skins for a short period of time, maybe overnight, maybe 2 hours, maybe press it off immediately, but there's going to be a little bit of skin contact time. That tannin, that color is going to be imparted into the juice, to make the rosé. The third method is to blend, white wine with red wine. And I've done all of these. My style of rosé that I enjoy drinking, I've arrived at the last method, and the reason being is that I get that very nice kiss of tannin. I get that very nice color, of course, because there's a good proportion of white wine in there. It is very refreshing. There's that acidity, that crispness, that freshness that you can get. And then the last thing is it's predictable. When you do it after the fermentation, as opposed to trying to attain the perfect amount of skin contact prior to fermentation, that's very difficult to figure that out as a winemaker. You can't taste it because you have 25% or 22, 23, 24% sugar juice, and trying to figure out the precise amount of tannin before it's become wine, before it's fermented. There is no winemaker on the face of the earth that can do that predictably and repeatedly, from vintage to vintage to vintage. Having said that, as I said, I drink a lot of rosé, and I'm quite happy to put back plenty of Saignée versions and plenty of the red grape skin contact versions of rosé. These are all valid.
There's no rule book on which grapes you can use in a rosé, especially when you're using the blending method. But there is some method to the Bartier madness of mixing different grapes to end up with the ideal rosé.
We grow Gewürztraminer, we grow Chardonnay, and we grow Merlot, amongst other varieties. And we had the intention of taking a certain portion of these into rosé production this year, so in 2019. And started doing some blending trials post-vintage, so in December of 2019. We had harvested the Gewürztraminer very early to make sure that we retained that crisp, natural acidity. The Chardonnay that was blended in as well brought some weight, actually some mouthfeel to the wine. And then the Merlot, of course, brought some tannin, brought that drying sensation, and of course some color as well. I love the color. I think it's fantastic. However, I think that color really, it was the least important consideration when we were putting this together, because that refreshing aspect, because you taste that, you drink that, and that little kiss of tannin, that's what we were looking for when we were putting together the blend of this wine.